the ghost that haunts you, making peace with the person you never became. Hello, curious mind, and welcome aboard. Today, we're not just taking any trip. We're going to descend together through 5 levels of insight, each deeper than the last, to explore one of the strangest and most personal ideas out there. We're talking about that ghost that sometimes whispers in our ear, that version of ourselves living in a parallel universe, the person we could have been. And I know what you might be thinking, another video about regret? No, we're going much deeper than that. Because understanding this grief isn't an exercise in sadness. It's one of the most powerful tools for building the life you truly want to live. I promise you this, by the end of this journey, the way you see your past, and especially your future, will have changed forever. Let's start with the first level, the surface of what we all know. The grief for the person we could have been almost always manifests as regret. The famous what if? It's that bitter feeling that surfaces when we think about the career we didn't pursue, the relationship we didn't nurture, or the risk we didn't take. It's a universal emotion, we've all felt it. Another familiar face of this grief is comparison, especially in the age of social media where it seems everyone is living their best possible lives. And this directly impacts what we do every day. It paralyzes us. The fear of regretting again prevents us from making new decisions, creating a cycle of inaction. Think of someone who dreamed of being a musician but chose a safe job. Every time they see an artist on stage, they feel that pang, that shadow of the life they didn't live. It's a classic example. And a third key point on this surface is that this grief isn't just about big decisions. It also appears in the small things, in the yous we abandoned, the fitter you, the you who read more, the you who kept in touch with friends. But where does this ability to torment ourselves with the past come from? Evolutionarily, it makes sense. Our brain developed the capacity to simulate alternative scenarios, to learn from mistakes, and make better decisions in the future. It's a survival mechanism. Imagine one of our ancestors. They took a shortcut through the forest and almost got eaten by a predator. Upon returning to the cave, their brain kept replaying, if I hadn't gone that way, that simulation, that regret, was a powerful learning software that would save their life next time. So, regret, comparison, and fear, everything we've just covered is just the tip of the iceberg. It's what floats on the surface of our consciousness. But if this is what we see on the surface, what secret engines are driving it from below? Let's descend to the second level, the hidden mechanisms. The first major secret driver of this grief is something psychologists call trajectory bias. Our brain assumes by default that the path not taken would always have been better. And this is the first big revelation. We're not comparing our real life to another real life. We're comparing our reality, with all its problems and nuances, to a perfect fantasy that never existed. Knowing this gives us an incredible tool. The opportunity lies in using that fantasy as a compass. If you constantly dream about the person you could have been who was more creative, it's not a sign of failure, it's a sign that your current self desires more creativity. For example, if you regret not having traveled more, instead of punishing yourself, you can see it as an invitation. Your mind is telling you, hey, the desire to explore is still here. Maybe you can't globetrot right now, but you can plan a weekend getaway. It's using the ghost as a guide. Now, for the risky side, this same mechanism can be a dangerous trap. It makes us idealize the past and devalue the present. It's the red flag that warns us we're about to make an impulsive decision based on a fantasy. Someone in a stable relationship, but with normal difficulties, might start idealizing a past love. Trajectory bias makes them think that with that other person, everything would have been perfect, ignoring that that other relationship would also have had its own challenges. Recognizing this can save you from sabotaging your current life. There's another process at play here, governed by an invisible neuroscientific rule. Our brain is literally wired to give more emotional weight to losses than to gains. This is known as loss aversion. We feel the pain of losing $10 much more intensely than the joy of gaining $10. In the same way, the you we lost, the opportunity we let slip by, hurts us much more than we value the yous we actually are and the opportunities we did take. It's like when you focus on the single question you got wrong on a test instead of celebrating the 19 you got right. Our brain by default focuses on I could have been perfect and dismisses I'm pretty good. Within our minds, the story of the person we could have been isn't just a simple memory. It's a narrative, a tale we tell ourselves, with a beginning, a middle, and an imagined tragic end. And this narrative is fueled by a very common mental trick, confirmation bias. Think of confirmation bias as a factory error in our brain. Once we believe something, our brain actively searches for and filters information to confirm that belief. If we believe we ruined our life by not taking that job, we'll only remember the bad things about our current job and only imagine the good things about the other. To counteract it, you have to do something that feels unnatural. Play devil's advocate with ourselves. Actively ask yourself, what problems might I have had in that other life? What good things do I have in my current life thanks to the decision I made? So the moment you catch yourself regretting, stop and force your mind to build the complete story of the path not taken, including potential roadblocks, unexpected tolls, and rainy days. Not just the sunny part of the journey. Interestingly, the way we construct these narratives has very ancient roots. Think of Greek epics and tragedies. These stories, which have shaped our culture, almost always revolve around a tragic fate or a fatal flaw. We've learned to tell our own lives with that same dramatic structure. The practical takeaway is this: you are the scriptwriter of your internal story. You can choose to tell it as a tragedy about what was lost, or you can tell it as an adventure story about what you've learned and where you're going now. The power is yours. From everything we've seen at this level, the most important real-life deduction is that the grief for the person you could have been rarely concerns the past. The general rule is this: the intensity of your regret for a past you is directly proportional to an unmet need in your present you. So the next time you feel that pang of nostalgia for the you that almost was, don't look back. Look inward. Ask yourself, what need am I not fulfilling right now? Is it adventure? Is it connection? Is it creativity? The answer is a guide for your next step. Understanding this is incredibly liberating. We stop being victims of our past and become detectives of our present. And that, my friend, is a superpower. But if you thought we had it all figured out, get ready, because here the story truly descends into chaos. Welcome to the third level, the chaos of reality. Here the easy answers run out, and the first major controversy is this grief a useful emotion that guides us, or is it a modern illness, a form of useless self-torture? On one hand, there are those who say it's an essential evolutionary tool for learning and improvement. On the other hand, there's a school of thought, especially in certain branches of psychology and Eastern philosophy, that views it as entirely optional suffering, a product of an ego that refuses to accept reality. What's at stake is fundamental. For the first group, eliminating this grief would be like removing pain from our hands. We'd lose a vital sensor. For the second group, what's at stake is the possibility of achieving peace of mind. Clinging to that grief is, for them, giving up on happiness. And this leads us to challenge a very popular belief, the idea that you should have no regrets. It sounds great on a coffee mug, but it's psychologically impossible and perhaps even undesirable. The myth we need to debunk is that a healthy, happy person has no regrets. Research, like that by social psychologist Amy Somerville, shows that almost everyone regrets something. Regret is a mark of a functioning mind, one capable of imagining a better future. And why do we love to believe in this zero regrets myth? Because it offers us a simple escape from a very complex and painful feeling. It's easier to adopt a slogan than to sit down and deal with the complexity of our own decisions. And here an incredible paradox emerges. The more we actively try to have no regrets and suppress those thoughts, the stronger they become. It's like trying not to think of a pink elephant. What are you thinking of now? This leaves us with an almost philosophical dilemma without an easy solution. To overcome the grief for the person we weren't, we must first accept that feeling that grief is normal and inevitable. We must surrender to win. Now let's adopt a critical perspective. Much of this grief is amplified by a culture that sells us the idea that we must optimize every aspect of our lives. The pressure to have the perfect career, the perfect body, the perfect life. And here's an ethical objection we rarely make. This obsession with the potential you ignores privilege. The ability to choose between multiple life paths is a luxury much of the world doesn't have. Regretting not having been a bohemian painter in Paris is a problem that arises from having options in the first place. Another big controversy is whether we should turn the page and forget or actively integrate that other version of ourselves into our current identity. Historically, many cultures promoted the idea of duty and acceptance of one's fate. The idea of grieving an alternative you would have been seen as an act of selfishness. Today, in our individualistic culture, exploring those alternative yous is almost seen as an obligation for self-knowledge. Ultimately, all of this connects with the human condition in a very profound way. We are the only creatures, as far as we know, aware of the passage of time and the infinite paths that close with every decision we make. And this creates a fundamental problem for us as a species. We have infinite imagination trapped in a finite life. We can dream of being 1,000 people, but we can only live one life. And nobody teaches us how to deal with that tension. As you can see, this isn't a black and white topic. It's a whirlwind of contradictions, cultural pressures, and dilemmas without clear answers. It's the inherent messiness of being human. You've survived the chaos. Now it's time to see the details that separate the curious from the true experts. We're on the fourth level, that of expert knowledge. And here we find a concept rarely discussed outside academic circles: the difference between regret of action and regret of inaction. Researchers like Thomas Gilovich and Victoria Medvec from Cornell University have shown a fascinating pattern over time. In the short term, we regret our actions more, the things we did wrong, but in the long term, regret of inaction for the things we didn't dare to do is much more painful and lasting. Think of it this way: regret of action is like an acute wound. It hurts a lot at first, but it heals. Regret of inaction is like a chronic illness. It's a dull ache that never completely goes away because our mind can infinitely idealize that path not taken. And to understand this, we need to talk about a key but often overlooked figure, psychologist Bluma Zygarnik. Zygarnik in the 1920s discovered something incredible while observing waiters in a cafe. They remembered pending orders with astonishing clarity, but once the order was paid, they completely forgot it. Her heroic and secret contribution was to identify what we now call the Zygarnik effect. Incomplete tasks remain stuck in our memory. The groundbreaking theory, based on her work, is that the grief for the person we could have been isn't a flaw, but an incomplete mental task. The unlived life is the order our brain hasn't yet been able to close and file away. And this offers us a radically different perspective. Perhaps the solution isn't to forget or overcome, but to symbolically complete the task. Did you want to be a writer? Write a short story. You don't have to write the great novel. Give your brain that sense of closure. Now, a research detail that contradicts everything we think we know. A study published in the journal Science found that people who feel closest to their ideal self, the person they aspire to be, are often the ones who feel the most pain for the self they could have been. This is totally counterintuitive. We'd think that being close to your ideal would make you happy, but it clashes with our logic because the higher you aim, the more aware you become of the gap between where you are and where you could be. Ambition and grief sometimes are two sides of the same coin. And here comes the final detail that connects everything. Neuroscience shows us that when we imagine these other selves, our brain activates the same regions as when we think about our current self, especially the medial prefrontal cortex. And this is the aha moment. For your brain, those other versions of you aren't distant fantasies. They are neurological extensions of yourself. That's why the grief feels so real. Because on a neuronal level, you are mourning the loss of a part of yourself. This level of detail gives us a much more compassionate and authentic view of the problem. We're not crazy or masochistic. We are biologically and psychologically wired to experience this strange and complex form of grief. From here, we enter uncharted territory. Do you dare to look towards the final frontier? We've reached the fifth and final level, the frontier of speculation and wonder. And the first futuristic idea is this: what if technology allowed us to experience our unlived lives through immersive virtual reality simulations? In 100 years, perhaps the grief for the person you could have been will become a form of existential tourism. You could spend a weekend living as the concert pianist you never were. Would it heal us or break us completely? And this leads us to the fundamental question where science stops. Do these other versions of us truly exist? Quantum physics, with its many worlds interpretation, suggests that every time we make a decision, the universe splits, and all possibilities become real in parallel universes. Science can't prove it, so this is where philosophy takes over. If those other yous are real, then you've lost nothing. You're simply living this version of the story, while other yous live the others. The philosophical implication is dizzying. Your identity wouldn't be a single line, but a tree with infinite branches. And the grief you feel wouldn't be for a fantasy, but a kind of quantum connection, a distant echo from your other lives. And this connects very directly with the future of humanity. As artificial intelligence can more accurately predict the consequences of our decisions, we will face a level of grief for the path not taken that we have never experienced before. Mastering this grief, learning to choose and commit to our path without being tortured by alternatives, could be the key psychological skill for navigating a future of almost infinite options. It would be the solution to analysis paralysis on a global scale. And here's the last idea, the most provocative of all. Perhaps the person you could have been isn't a ghost of the past, but a seed for the future. Perhaps all those qualities you admire in that idealized version of you aren't memories of what you lost, but the raw material for the person you are becoming. And with that idea, our descent through the 5 levels has ended. Now let's take a moment to emerge and contemplate the incredible landscape we've traversed together. At the beginning of this video, we talked about that familiar and simple feeling of regret, the classic what if. We saw it as something bitter, a pang of sadness for a past we can't change. And now, look where we've arrived, at the idea that that very feeling could be an echo of parallel universes, an incomplete task in our brain, or even a neurological compass guiding us toward the person we are destined to be. We've transformed a simple emotion into a tool for self-knowledge, a philosophical debate, and a question about the very future of humanity. It's been an incredible journey. So now I ask you directly, what idea from this entire journey impacted you the most? What piece of this puzzle resonated with you? I want to sincerely thank you for your time, your curiosity, and for joining me on this deep exploration. I'd love to read your reflections in the comments. This is the beginning of the conversation, not the end. If you enjoyed this journey into the depths of an idea, subscribe so you don't miss the next descent. And if you think someone else could benefit from it, share this video with them. As always, keep questioning, keep exploring, and dare to understand. See you in the next video. And now, what will you build with your ghost?